Welcome, paranormal enthusiasts, to this week's episode of Creepin It Reel, here on the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network, where everyone comes for their paranormal fix. Real people, real stories, in real time. So glad you could join us for some ghostly gab. I'm your host, Eleanor Wagner. As always, I appreciate you hitting the subscribe tab, follow button, or show app on your podcast of choice. Chris, there's a picture up. I think you should take it down. Everybody give a hello shout out to our coast to coast techie, Chris Mabry. He'll be working hard tonight to help us run smoothly. Chris? There we go. Tonight's show focuses on a paranormal team out of Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, founded in 2012, whose premise is to investigate paranormal hauntings, research them, come up with theories for the hauntings, experiment with communicating with spirit, and documenting their findings. Join me in welcoming the women of the Unearthing Shadows paranormal team. We have founder Andrea Bailey. Hey there, and Lorianne.
Hello.
And yes, hi, how are you? And we have Jen. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
There you go.
Okay.
Tell me, how did all you come together to be a paranormal team? Let's go around and have each of you tell the audience what your role is as a team and how you got together. We'll start with Andrea.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm the founder and lead investigator of Unearthing Shadows Paranormal. So I wear many hats in the team.
Such as, what do you do?
So some of my key roles are like to understand the equipment that we use, the experiments that we're trying to do, documenting that, taking an analytical role. And just having a really sound background in the paranormal and current studies, and keeping up to date with some science that's relevant to what we do.
And Lorianne, why don't you tell us about your role?
I'm ops manager, as well as my primary role is doing research for anything that Andrea throws at me. Sometimes I find I go straight down the rabbit hole and she has to give me a hand, lift me out. But that is my primary role, is to figure out stuff. And it's something that I really enjoy doing.
And Jen, you have yours. There you go. You unmuted. Great. Why don't you tell us about your role?
Yep. Sure thing. So I'm one of the senior investigators. Andrea and I started investigating prior to the group forming, and we have just both a mutual fascination for the paranormal and sort of uncovering things that are unknown. So as the senior investigator, again, I have that sort of history and experience. I also am familiar with the equipment and help to review evidence and debunk if possible. And also too, I'm sort of the travel adventure enthusiast of the team. So what I will do before we go on investigation, if we're going to another city or another place, I will do some research and also advise the gals on what sort of things that they can expect in those locations from a travel side of things. Good practices to prepare for these types of adventures we're going on.
My history is similar to you too. I used to investigate with a whole bunch of women friends. We'd go away on weekend places. We'd pick a haunt that we'd want to go to. We'd spend the weekend there. And then I started writing my books about local hauntings, and just one thing led to another. And the next thing I knew, I had a paranormal team. So I can relate.
Amazing. So fun.
Oh, it is. It is. Absolutely. My team actually started with all women. There was only just one man, and then there was all women, and he was fine with being on the Lady Ghostbusters team. But since we've evolved, we have like equal men and equal women, so we've changed the name to New Jersey Spirit Hunters. I thought it was only fair not to call the men Lady Ghostbusters. Anyway,
Fair enough.
you guys investigated the Craig Flowers Schoolhouse. So we're going to put up a photo for the audience. Photo credit to the Craig Flower Schoolhouse website, and Jean Wang and Renee Boulou, who took other pictures that we're going to put up. For the listening audience, the Craig Flower Schoolhouse and its neighboring manor are National Historic Sites of Canada located in View Royal, British Columbia. The 19th century building commissioned by the Hudson's Bay's Company to provide education and lodging to its employees. It remains open today to the public as a museum. And can you tell me, Andrea, what makes it so haunted?
Well, there's actually quite a few aspects that make this very haunted. Like there is a First Nations burial grounds, which would be closer to the water there. The house itself, like back in the day, this started because it was the only, there weren't a lot of routes, so it was the only way to have a school for like the farm hands and the farm owners. So one of the first school teachers' wife passed away in the building as well. And there, just a few closely related deaths around there. And also there's been some cases in the area, so it makes it a prime location for hauntings.
As I understand it, you investigated the location several times and you've had a number of experiences to report, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, we've been there quite a few times. I believe five times we've been there so far for the past few years. It's
I know that we often go back to. That's all right. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just saying, it's just quite a fascinating place because on appearance it seems like it's very quiet, peaceful place. But when you review the evidence after, you're just blown away by like everything that you were able to capture. And the more we go back there, we find we get more activity as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know we often go back to places when we've been to them once and we warrant something really good. It gives us that itch to go back to get more. And then those places that you've gone to that you hear everybody gets something from, and then you go and there's nothing, that makes you want to go back again too to see if you can get something. So you find yourself going back to a place more than
Absolutely.
once. Hence your fifth time you go there and you get something good, right? Well, you brought along some video footage, so I'm going to have Chris show them one at a time. And the first one we'll show is that Craig Flower Schoolhouse dowsing session video. But why don't you explain to the audience what we're going to see before we show it?
Sure. So in one of the videos, it shows Lorianne. We were doing we were doing a few experiments, like testing out the responses we get with the dowsing rod as well as the pendulum. And this was at the beginning of that session where Lorianne started with the dowsing rods, and we were all asking questions, and we were receiving quite a few responses. And at that particular time, we had a spirit that we were communicating with, and then we noticed a sudden transition, and so we were able to pick up a second spirit. So that's where she got a response to that.
I like using the dowsing rods. I know that I've always been nervous about using the Ouija board, but for some reason I'm comfortable using a pendulum or dowsing rods.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a personal choice. Okay, Chris, so why don't you go ahead and run that Craig Flower Schoolhouse dowsing session for us to see. We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Very clear.
Have you guys ever found that you know you use the dowsing rods? Have you ever gone and used a pendulum? Have you ever used a pendulum in your sessions? I see Jen nodding her head. Have you used that? Yeah. I know that they
Yeah.
say go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, pendulum is a really convenient tool to use when investigating because you can slip it in your pocket. You can choose the type of pendulum you like. We have a number of our favorite crystals that we can have as the point on a pendulum. And one that I like is rose quartz, and it gives me sort of this piece of it gives me a sense of peace and calm. So I really like using that. But I think Andrea is really effective with the pendulum as well because she's been using it for a long time. And so she's already established the points, what the yes looks like, what the no looks like. So she tends to get really quick and accurate responses. And then we can also validate that with other devices as well, including the dowsing rods or electrical equipment. But the fact that they sort of you get the same responses from them, that just validates the answer to us.
And pendulums are so personal to the investigator too. The one that you feel the most attachment to and connection to is usually the one that you should go with because you get the more responses from. So I totally get that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see that you use spirit boxes too, which I love. Tell
Yes.
us about that spirit box session because we do have the Craig Flower Schoolhouse spirit box session that you brought with you today to show everybody.
Yes, so that one in particular, that was one of the more recent times that we were there, but there were so many clips. I was really shocked. When I went back to review the evidence, water responses upstairs, that main schoolhouse we were in, we probably got 25 different responses. And there was three very clear voices that came through. There was a female and two male spirits. The female and one of the male spirits seemed totally fine answering questions, but the one male seemed to be quite agitated and didn't, as the video will show, wasn't really thrilled that we were there.
Oh, okay, Chris, you want to run that for us? It's the Craig Flower Schoolhouse Spirit Box session.
What was that?
Do you find that happens a lot, that you get a lot of voices or mysterious music that you can't account for when you're using the spirit box? Yeah, I see Jen nodding.
I was going to say it's sort of a hit and miss. It's a bit of a hit or miss with the spirit box. Sometimes you have spirits that are very excited and eager to chat with you, and other times they're not, and you don't get the responses. Other devices are sensing something's there, but they may not feel comfortable speaking through the spirit box or how to use it. Something that Andrea taught me earlier on in our learning how to investigate is that sometimes spirits, they're from another time, and they don't recognize these devices. It's sort of foreign. Lights are going, sounds are going, and it can be loud, and so they may be even scared or timid by it. So I feel that sometimes you have positive responses and they're very effective with the spirit box, but sometimes it's more the traditional old school methods like the dowsing rods or the pendulums, or you feel a hand on your shoulder or something like that. It all depends on how they want to communicate or if they want to communicate.
Right. I like to let them know too, because they are confused and you don't know where they're coming from, and trying to explain to them time frame, what I have there, what it's all about, so that they can understand a little better and maybe feel a little bit more comfortable and receptive to communicating. So I totally get that. I know another one of the locations you've investigated is the Fort Rod Hill and Fisgard lighthouse. And so we have a couple of photographs that I took off of the website. Picture credit to Fort Rod Hill and Fisgard Lighthouse, Laurel Newfeld, Sansonet Barley, and Polina. And Chris is going to put those pictures up for the audience. There is a 19th century West Coast artillery fortress built in the late 1890s and on active duty to 1956 to defend Victoria and the Esquimalt Naval Base. The fort includes 3 gun batteries, underground magazines, command posts, guardhouses, barracks, and searchlight replacements. There are numerous interpretive signs and audio-visual stations, as well as period-furnished rooms. And the former keeper's house now contains exhibits and a video station. And then there's the Fisgard Lighthouse, which is the oldest lighthouse on Canada's west coast. It's beautiful. He's going to put that up too. There we go. As I understand it, there's a bevy of touching personal stories of soldiers and lighthouse keepers. We actually have a photograph of a lovely view from the inside of the lighthouse. So I would love to know why this is considered to be so haunted. Do you want to fill me in, Lorianne?
Well, I'm going to leave that with Andrea. I did have an experience that isn't in the White House. That was in one of the bunkers with Andrea, and we didn't film it. And it was as well-known presence there. And Andrea and Jen have had multiple experiences, and that was my first experience there.
Oh, that was your first experience there.
Yeah, it was my very first. I didn't, unfortunately, have any experiences in the lighthouse. But there with Andrea, it was very dark, and Andrea could tell that I was starting to get agitated because I was looking at Andrea and I was seeing something, but I couldn't at the time figure out what it was. And it was like a black mist surrounding Andrea and mostly focusing around her mid-waist area. And it was very, like, the temperature dropped in there, and it was very, like, we didn't have any equipment. It was just all of a sudden and instantaneous, and it left as quickly as it happened. So that was my experience there, one of my very first, which was very cool. Now, I know there was a lot of shipwrecks from what Andrea has told me that happened there. There was a lot of, I think it was also a First Nations ground as well. There's a lot of spiritual attachment to that area. So I haven't been able to find out exactly which First Nations group or what exactly is going on there. But there's a lot of energy, negative energy that is within that.
Oh, negative. Well, correct me if I'm mistaken. Andrea and Jen were part of the first ever and only open to the public investigation of the location back in 2013, where they stayed overnight. And you guys said you got incredible evidence, correct?
It was amazing. It was a really neat experience.
When you say that, I know the mist came later with Lorianne, but we did an investigation in mines here in New Jersey, and we came in contact with the mist too. And we were all running our cameras at the time, and we all got it, and we all exclaimed because it started communicating with us, and we were just blown away that it was responding to our conversations. And I actually took the best footage from that night, and I sent it into a program that's here in the States called Paranormal Caught on Camera, and they liked it. They ended up featuring it on their show, and we were just tickled pink about that. And then recently, we did an investigation in an old asylum, and we had an encounter with a shadowy mist coming down one of the main hallways, and we were just all like, wait, get it, make sure you got the cameras going, just focus on it. And it just kept moving forward. It was the coolest thing. I mean, that's probably, next to the mist that we saw in the mines, is probably one of the best experiences I've had personally. So please do tell us about your experience.
Andrea, do you want to go?
Well, I'll just give a bit of a recap, and then I'll let Jen tell her stories because she's got some pretty incredible stories there. But I mean, like, really, this base, like, anytime we go there, we get some haunts. Like, it's quite an active place. But I think Jen and I would both say that we feel pretty fortunate we got to be there for that one investigation. It was great having like the psychics there. We were just kind of getting into it. There was just an array of people there, but for me, the things that stood out was the lighthouse in particular, because there was this one energy that was very menacing, and it was very present the entire night. And I've gone back a few times since, and I've been able to get a mist in the window there. The K2 works really well in that same window. So I found that interesting. And then I believe it was the same entity of the story. Like there were 6 of us in these authentics that they have on site there. And I woke up to one of the girls next to me saying, "There's somebody in the room. There's somebody in the room." And the cover just being pulled off of me while Jen and this other lady were waking up to like all the commotion that went. And then after that, when we left the authentics, some of the photos I took, you could see a whole bunch of orbs. So it's just a very fascinating
Well, you brought a bunch of photos with you today, so we're gonna show them to everybody and talk about them. What did you want to add to that, Jen?
Oh, I just wanted to say, so just to kind of give you an idea of what an authentic is, it's sort of like a little yurt, a little bit of like a tent, but it's more yurt style. And so this is the end of our night. We had completed overnight investigation. It was really, really early in the morning. We were pretty exhausted, and we crashed pretty hard in spite of it being cold and sort of that different type of temperature. And I remember waking up to this scream and getting up, and Andrea's blankets were off of her body, and she said that she felt them being pulled off of her, and just the scream around it was quite exciting. And that was sort of the cherry on top of our already really eventful night. To be honest, I'm not sure how I fell asleep because there was so much excitement through the night, but that sure woke me up. So that's one memory that I'll always share. And then the other thing I wanted to just say quickly about the ground.
Jen has a really good story as well.
Well, okay. I'm not sure if this is the one you're thinking of, but so for me, when I go on investigations, it's not as common for me to visualize something, but I will hear things, but I tend to feel things. And I tend to feel the energy or the emotions that the spirits are feeling. And I think they've caught on to that because they'll sometimes relay that through me in with their emotions. And I remember being in one particular room, I think it was a games room on the barracks. So again, you're thinking this is a military base or a Navy base. And this is where a lot of men stayed and had these experiences as part of the military or the Navy. And I remember immediately getting overwhelming sense of fear and sadness come over me. And I started crying. And Andrea and the friends we were with asked if I was okay. And I truly felt okay, but I was feeling this sense of just remorse and sad, because I think that we were trying to help it cross over. You know, do you see the light? Do you want to go to the light? It's a beautiful place. And just that fear and tension, that apprehension, they didn't want to go forward. And they were so sad from something that had happened in this life that they weren't ready, or they were scared of what would happen if they went to that light.
Yeah.
But I remember feeling it so vividly. And then Andrea thanked him for passing that knowledge or that information to me, and then it left. And that's happened a few times on investigations, and I really felt that night in the games room at the barracks.
So interesting. I found that different spirits connect to different members of the team, and it could be just a personal reason for them liking one or feeling more connection to one over another. I mean, they were humans in life, so it's understandable. Yes. And we too have tried to cross some into the light, and there was that fear of rejection on the other side for some of them. With the mind and that men group and the brotherhood that was there, some of them wanted to leave and some didn't. And so none of them left because they didn't want to leave their brothers behind. So it's amazing how you have these situations arise, and you so desperately want to help them move on.
Yeah.
And I try to tell them that if you go into the light, you can come back and visit anytime you want. But if you don't, you're just stuck here. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's really sad. But that's crazy cool that you felt that emotion. It really is amazing. Well, we're going to show some of those pictures, and Chris is going to put the fist guard face and orb black and white up first there. And we've got the arrow that's pointing to the orb, and there's the face. I guess this is the enhanced version, correct? I'm thinking, Andrea, right?
It is, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
And you also have Fizgard Lighthouse second face in the orb black and white picture as well. Now, is this the same window, just enhanced, or no? Is it a different area?
It's the exact same window, just enlarged, just with a little bit more detail, so you can get a better description of the face that's in there.
Were you able to connect the face to a person or no? In history, maybe, or do you have any ideas or thoughts about who it might be?
So my honest opinion is I don't feel that this is actually a human entity. I really felt the energy around it was something different, perhaps an elemental, like
really?
A human face to some degree, but there's a lot of elements about it that I do not feel it's human. So
I've recently encountered the elementals, and I never was really sure about them and what they were, but to have to actually experience it, then it helps you understand it a little bit better. So I'm finding there's a lot more out there than I even realized in my research these last 5 years, especially with podcasting and meeting people like yourselves who have been in the business for a lot of years, or they're very active out there doing things, and they come in contact with stuff and they're talking to me about it, and I'm just blown away. So it makes me want to find out more. And there really is a whole lot of stuff out there that you just never knew existed, and it just does. We have the Fizgard Lighthouse heat and orb heat sensor one that you brought too, if Chris can put that one up. Hopefully we get this one right. I think it was, no, this is an enlarged one of the face again. Yeah, I see that there.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's an elemental, it's so strange how it can appear almost human, but there's just something about it that's slightly off that makes you say, I mean, we were in a situation once where there was an elemental actually controlling the spirit of the house, wouldn't let the spirit of the house talk to us because it wanted to be in control. And it was really creepy looking one too. It was trying to present itself as a child, but you could tell it really wasn't a child. And that was the first time I ever experienced that. And it really creeped me out.
Yes, I can imagine.
Chris, you want to put up another picture? From the Fizgard Lighthouse? It would be like FRH labeled, because we've got quite a few. Now, what is this one? You want to explain this one, Andrea?
This one is the orb that showed up in the picture. And when you get to the heat sensor photo, it really is apparent that it's there. And then
it's in the lower right of the picture. In the original picture, it's in the lower right-hand corner, correct?
Exactly, yes. And then in this one, when it's enhanced, you can see a bit of a face in the photo. You can see the two eyes, the nose, and the mouth, but it's not as pronounced as the other face. But I just thought that was quite interesting. And I think we all felt that night too, that this energy does seem to be the dominant energy in the lighthouse.
Considering that it's naval oriented there, I tend to think that back then, women weren't allowed. So when women come in there and we start not bossing them around, but asking questions, which kind of in the Navy would have been like overstepping our bounds, so to speak. Maybe that's why you kind of felt some of them were negative, and it could be just in relation to what they were accustomed to and us not supposed to be there. You know what I mean?
Interesting that you speak about women and Navy. Is within the barracks, there is a specific room that the Navy men were allowed to have friends and companions come and visit.
A little fraternization going on.
Just a little, yeah. And it's so funny because when we go in that room, it's not anything negative. It's not, at least personally for me, it's more like a good fun old time. I'm picturing, like giggles and laughs and happiness, and that's sort of the energy that I'm feeling when we go into that room. And we've had a couple good chuckles in investigating near there.
I'll bet.
I'm trying to
Chris is
remember
going to put.
I was just going to say,
Go
I'm
ahead.
trying to remember some of the things that came out on the spirit box or the obelisk. Andrea, do you recall anything? But some of them were kind of leading towards, fun play type thing, playful
Flirtiness.
Yeah, we had some
flirtiness.
some interesting moans and
Yeah.
groans come out that one time, and then
Ooh, okay.
we kind of had a giggle about that, but
I'll bet. Hey, Chris, can you put that picture back up that you just had on? Which is like the two side-by-side pictures. And I'm trying to remember where I think that was the heat and orb sensor one, right, Andrea? The one he just had it up on the screen a little while ago. There it goes.
Oh,
is that the heat?
Yeah. No, this was a different thing. We were all leaving. This was right after I took the other photos, and we were all leaving the land. You can see the two dots above the oval. Those you can actually see them moving through the air, and so I started taking photos, and then instantly this mist formed, and then it vanished quickly. Like, it was a very clear night. And there's been theories about how one of the architects commonly shows himself around that area of the lighthouse. So matching some photos to him, I mean, it's a very rough mist, right? But you can definitely see the outline of him.
Oh, no, yeah, you can definitely tell that's a male, and I can see his face very clearly. And I'm assuming that you're saying that the two dots you think are orbs. I would think that they are orbs as well. And is that what you were thinking too? The two dots above?
Yeah. I believe so, because they were moving so quickly, and like, it was a clear night. Like, that's ocean behind it, but like, there was nothing in the sky aside from this, and to see them with the naked eye, that I knew they weren't like water molecules or anything of that sort. They were way too big to be bugs. So, but it was just interesting. It was just a very interesting night. Lots happened.
I love this photograph. This is really a great find. I know that when you take a bunch of photographs, it's very tedious to sit there, to go through them, to see if you catch anything. And most of the time it's in those moments when you feel something or you see something and you say, I'm taking pictures. But if you go through them and you have the time and the patience, you often come up with some really good things that you would have overlooked if you didn't spend the time actually sitting there to see what you may have missed. Hey, Chris, can you put up one of the other pictures that we haven't shown yet? Go ahead, Andrea. You were about to say something?
Oh, I was sorry. It's Jennifer. I was just going to say, Andrea's taught me to always take pictures in series of threes or more, right? So, try to capture it, see if you can replicate that same image that you're seeing. And to validate or debunk some things, but sometimes you're not able to, and so we won't say something is definitely something because we don't know for sure, but we can definitely debunk when something is not. And if we've tried all techniques and methods to debunk something and we still can't, then we leave that to the audience for their interpretation.
And plus, if you have one or more pieces of equipment that are going off at the same time, that something pops up in a video or it validates it, correct? And I've taken on that picture in 3 sequence myself, and I got one of my greatest photographs in a cemetery tour with a bunch of other investigators taking the picture. I took 3 pictures. He wasn't in the first. He halfway was in the second, and I got a full-blown apparition of him in the third. And that's the way you do it. That's how you get some really great catches. So this picture that's here that we have up right now, you clearly see there's a tree, and it kind of looks like it might be in a cemetery. Correct me if I'm mistaken. I don't know if that's a monument in the background, but I do see the orb in the upper right, and I see an arrow to the left, but I'm not sure what that is at this point.
That was actually right after the story Jen and I were telling you about in the Authentics, when like we were all waking up freaking out because something was pulling the covers off me. And then Jen and I went outside after, and I think the girls were kind of hovering around the entrance to the tent. And Jen and I both just started taking some photos, and some of these orbs started showing up in a couple of the photos, but none of the other ones. So it was just interesting that all that happened within a short period.
Cool. So, Chris, you want to put up another one of the sleeping quarters ones that we have? I know this one. Okay, I'm not sure where that one's from, but why don't you explain that one to us?
I'll let Lorianne explain this one. This is the one of the story that she was telling you about when she saw the mist around me. So we took a few photos, but we didn't record what we were doing at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, this was the room, and there was like I said, right, there was a bit of negative energy going around, but I noticed I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't focus on Andrea, and it was because all of a sudden there was this mist surrounding her, and mostly, like I said, focusing around her middle area, and I didn't know if it was negative or a positive. Entity or what it was. It was one of my, like I said, one of my first experiences with seeing a mist like that. And I just couldn't focus and figure out what I was seeing. So Andrea just stopped me, and she goes, just tell me what you're seeing. I'm saying, well, it's moving around. It's not malevolent, but it's not like it was almost a familiarity. Like they knew that she's been there before. So, but it was a little bit, after we left, I did feel quite nauseated and everything. So it was quite shocking for me to see something so vivid like that and give me such strong reaction to it. So that room is very active, very active. It would be really neat for me to go back there and see if it happens again.
Why do you suppose they stopped after that one time that they let you guys stay overnight there? What prompted them to stop allowing paranormal groups in?
It was a number of things. It's because it's a federal government property. There was some liability issues. The First Nations group felt it was very inappropriate for these types of investigations to be happening on sacred lands. And from their point of view, I definitely understand. I do see everybody's points in this, but the government, I was involved in working on some agreements to allow us paranormal investigators to go there. But unfortunately, things started happening and it just wasn't a priority for them. So it's still on the back burner, but I'm not sure when they're going to look at that again. So for a while, we were quietly allowed to investigate there. And now it's more just trying to do it respectfully under the radar.
Here in the States, we try and get into the historical buildings in each of the towns. And you have different people with different views. So you have some that are like unmoving and don't want to have anything to do with it. But when you tell them, if you start opening it up to paranormal groups, you can get funds that help the buildings to be preserved. So now a lot of them are bending the rules and opening up those doors to paranormal investigating, which I'm thrilled about because we're forming fundraisers to help them to take care of these beautiful buildings and keep that history alive, which it's a win-win if you ask me. I mean, we're not hurting anybody. So, but it just takes a while for things like that to happen. So unfortunately, I know you have some video footage with you. Yeah, I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
Oh, I said, especially here in Canada, we're very slow to jump on the train.
It's the same here in the States. Don't feel bad. I know that you brought some footage with you of the underground battery obelisk session. So we'll have Chris run that video, but why don't you tell us what we're going to see when it's up and running?
Sure. Jen, did you want to jump in on this one? Because Jen was the one talking and I was the one holding the key too.
Oh, I'm not sure which one this one is, so I might have to see it first to refresh my memory.
All right, we'll run it first, and then you can talk about it.
Are you with your family then? Yes. My arm's so bad right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember this night. Yes. So we with the K2, obviously it has sensitivities in certain areas. So we always do a preliminary scan of the room with the K2 to see if there's any electromagnetic fields like not naturally occurring, but also from sources like exposed wires and electrical devices.
Right.
So we always do that. And we did that in this area and determined that there were none in this area. We're underground in this tunnel without electricity through this point. And I do recall, I'm trying to remember if it was the end of the night or something, and we were just about to give up. We were just about to pack it in. And then Andrea asked some questions, and we started getting some hits on the K2. I believe we were able to determine a name too on this one. Andrea, your memory is better than mine.
Yeah, we definitely did, and unfortunately forgot the name, but we were able to track it a bit to a soldier that had been on the base. He was communicating. We had a lot of associations to a ring. I guess the ring that he wanted to give it to, that she had maybe, there were some suggestions that maybe she didn't accept it and ran off with somebody else. My left arm, I always get a very cold, like it was nothing negative, just always grabbing my hand. And that's what prompted us to start asking questions. And I don't know, sometimes like Jen and I, it seems to work well. Like if one of us asks questions and the other holding the devices, and it just seemed to, like, that was one of the best K2 sessions we've ever had. It was probably like 40 minutes straight of responses, and then it just stopped.
Love that when you can get a name or make a connection somehow.
Yeah. But then it's so sad too when they're just done, because as quick as it comes on, sometimes they're just so quick to say, and I'm done now, and they leave and they don't give us any more. We have tried returning back to that spot, and it wasn't quite as effective as the first time, if I'm recalling correctly. I think we were able to reconnect and get the same name. I want to say Edward. Is that right? Anyways, if we look back at our footage, we can find it. But yeah, and we did get validation of the same name again the next time we returned, but it wasn't as active as that first night that I recall.
I like it when they recognize you and they come back and they say, "It's you again." Yeah. But like you said, it depends on their mood.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes that works to our advantage. We usually we'll start off by introducing ourselves, because just as if you were to approach a stranger, they may or may not want to talk to you. So we approach ourselves, we explain why we're here, we'd like to communicate, we explain what the devices are so that they are not scary and they're known to them. And so sometimes we do, in some cases, we find that they're quicker to start up to respond to our questions and to speak to us if we're familiar to them.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So you have a haunted doll, Andrea. How did you come to acquire this doll?
Yes. Yeah, it's become a running joke. This doll's been in my family for 180, nearing 200 years. My mom's family was from, and it was Bukovina, Austria, so I believe it's part of the Ukraine now. And my great-grandparents were literally just thrown on the boat in World War II and sent over here. So my great-grandma had this doll. We don't know a ton about why it's been in my family that long. We just know it has, and then it's been passed from my aunt to my aunt to my aunt, who says it's creepy and didn't want it. I really don't remember seeing it yet, but I took it. So now I have a haunted doll, and that's always fun to tell people. Be like, hey, just so you know.
Does she have a name?
I believe it's a male, and I've never been able to. I know a psychic once had a name for it, and I forgot what she said the name was, but I didn't feel that resonated with the doll. Like, with all due respect, like probably did, but I think we all feel a sense of it being I've always felt it was like a younger male between like a teen to early 20s, very entitled. It definitely makes itself known if it's not happy. It definitely likes to be taken care of. It's usually at peace, like as long as it knows I'm not giving it away or that it's staying within the family, it's perfectly fine and at rest. Like every once in a while, like right now, I can feel it standing at the barn door behind me. I can feel it standing there watching. So it is aware. But yeah, maybe the ladies might have a different impression of what they felt when they saw it.
Why don't you tell me what you felt, Jen?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first and foremost, all we knew, we hadn't seen a picture of this doll before. We had never seen it before, but all we knew was Andrea was bringing her haunted doll to an investigation. And we did this at the an Austrian club that we have investigated before, and there's a lot of
Makes sense.
history.
That connection. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, she thought that
Makes
would be a
sense.
good place to do the the unveiling for us to see this doll that's been in her. She was kept keeping a secret for us, or at least not hadn't shown it to us for so long. And I guess I was a little bit surprised at how small it was when she pulled it out. She brought this box with her, and she opened up the lid, and then there's all this tissue paper, and she unwrapped the paper, and there was more tissue paper, and she unwrapped, and there was a bag, and she unwrapped, and it just kept getting smaller and smaller until she pulled out this sweet little doll that it didn't look very intimidating to see. When you picture haunted dolls, you think Annabelle or something of
Well,
that nature.
you do know that
Chucky.
Annabelle movie, even the Annabelle movie, that is nothing what she looks like. She's a regular
No.
Raggedy Ann doll.
Exactly.
They made her look like this sinister doll, but she's
For
really a
Hollywood.
simple, like Raggedy Ann doll that doesn't look intimidating in the least.
And that resonates with most of us because we had Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls growing up too. So it
Yes.
to put that creepy spin when you think of clowns. Clowns were this happy thing that everyone loved, and then all of a sudden there's that creepy factor, and then it gets even creepier. So I had different expectations when I knew that Andrea was coming with her doll. But when she opened it up, it was smaller than expected, but you could tell it was so fragile, very delicate. It had been made with love and like it was fine craftsmanship, and that Andrea had been taking incredible care of it, almost as if it was a pet or a friend or something like that. You could tell that she had, from what I heard too, is that she had sort of made a vow that she would take care of this doll. And that the doll was very happy with her. So my first impression is, well, I think also, so first impression was shocked about the size and how well it was taken care of. And it had like sets of clothing that can fit only it. But when we started doing the asking questions and recording, the responses, doing EVP sessions, doing spirit box, etc., some of the responses that we were getting were indicative of this entitled young male as well, and sort of not wanting really to speak to any of us. There were 3 others in addition to Andrea who were asking questions, and I think predominantly the spirit just wanted to talk to Andrea, and it was fearful that she might be passing it on or getting rid of it of sorts. And so it wasn't until Andrea spoke to the doll and made it very well known and clear that she is intending to keep and protect and maintain it, that it's almost like there was a huge sigh of relief, and then the answers started flowing a little bit easier.
And Lorianne, were you privy to this too when this was taking place, or did you have an opportunity to feel that doll and get your own experience from it?
Well, I wasn't privy to that, but I did interview them afterwards to find out their experience, because mine was actually opposite of what Jen and Ange and Andrea have experienced. Same thing, Andrea took the doll out. She had come over I live in Vancouver, so she came over, she brought the doll out, unwrapped it just like Jen said, and I go, oh, it's a smaller doll, and but there was a sense of calm around it. It it was weird. Didn't seem agitated. It let me touch it, and it just was it was a very calm experience. It was nothing like what they had experienced. So maybe it didn't want to talk to me. I don't know, but it was just let me talk to Andrea about it, ask all these questions, and say, hey, did you know that this size of doll was definitely a German doll, and that it was often given from affluent people to their children. So there was just that sense of royalty behind it, but it was very calm. It was actually the clothes I found that were made for it that had a weird energy to it.
The clothing, is it female or male?
Well, I thought it was female, but it's very hard to tell because it's very it's
Period.
Yeah, very period. But
well, that's why I get back to, if it's a male spirit that's in the doll, did the doll belong to a male? The question, I'm sure, has gone through your minds as well.
It has, and my tendency is to believe it's female because of my experience with it. It's the only time I've ever had any of that activity is when I've been talking to Andrea and I hear the noise in the background, and she goes, oh, that's the doll again. And you can actually hear noise and movement while we're talking over the video. And I usually say, hi, there's no, we're just not talking about you. Everything's good. But that's the only time where I've had that type of energy. But personally, it seemed okay with me, and it let me handle it.
So interesting. So interesting. Well, I know that you guys have a YouTube video on this whole haunted doll thing coming out soon. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so one thing we thought would be really interesting is, like, our big thing for us is just research and facts and a better understand. We thought this was a great opportunity. I've had this doll, I don't want to date myself, but probably I've had it in my possession for about 30 years since I was a young teen. And, so I have a long history with it. And we decided that we would just document it and put together everything from, like, the history behind it that we know to our experiences behind it to the research that Lorianne did. And we'll have that's going to be released in the next couple weeks here. And we'll be interested to see what people think about my haunted doll.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure it'll be a big hit because they love that sort of stuff. Well, tell everybody what you have coming up besides this haunted doll video. What are you guys doing? What is your plans for the next few months? Where can they find you if they want to look for you?
Yeah, so Instagram's our big platform, but I think a lot of us are on TikTok as well. But I'll let everybody run through their social media. But our main account is just at Unearthing Shadows Paranormal. We've got some really interesting investigations coming up this year. Some places in the works of some historical locations. We have a lot of videos coming up that we've been working on, like videos we've been working on for like a couple of years, going back to like the same location and gathering more and more information. We're working on a reality TV show just because we really want to show, with all due respect, the truthful side of investigating. And
oh yeah, I totally agree.
From start to end, what that really is.
That's one thing that I have an issue with, that they try to present this picture that's not true. It's untrue, and the public has this false understanding of paranormal investigating. And having my own experience with a situation for TV, I was told it's entertainment and we want to entertain the public, and if something doesn't happen, we have to make it happen. So when you take it into that perspective, wanting to show the public what it really is a great idea, and I hope you succeed with that for sure. I know that
thank you.
I was thinking this question came up before and I lost it as we were talking, but getting back to the doll, I find that when I tell spirit that I'm telling their story. I'm a writer, I'm an author, and I write books. And I'm here because I want to hear your story. If there's something that you want to tell me, I'm going to tell the world for you. So if you haven't already done that with the doll, and let the doll know that you love the doll and you're taking care of the doll, but we want to tell your story, maybe you might get more out of it if you haven't already done that. I'm on TikTok too, so I'm gonna look for all you ladies.
Please do. But yeah, no, actually I do. Like I talk to the doll as much as I talk to my dog. I'm just the crazy haunted doll and dog person. But you know, I do. I mean, I find a change in energy when I do that. Exactly. And I mean, it's just interesting. Like I feel I want to know, because it's interesting to me. Like when you hold the doll, like I anyways feel very poisoned. Like after holding it for a minute or two, I start feeling very sick. So for me, I'm like, what happened to the spirit? So for me, it's like, it's a personal mission to try to, I just feel like it's my responsibility to take care of it and to, like you say, to try and
figure that out.
To tell it.
Yeah. I totally agree. Totally agree. So you're Unearthing Shadows Paranormal on YouTube as well. And is that your TikTok too?
It is, yes.
And Jen and Lorianne, where can we find you guys?
Go ahead, Jen.
Okay, I'll go first. So I haven't ventured off into the TikTok world yet. I know I'm a little bit behind, but I am on Instagram. The general key for our tags on Instagram is at USP, which stands for Unearthing Shadows Paranormal, and then an underscore, and then our name. So I'm USP_Jennifer.
Okay.
And I'm at USP_Lorianne Researcher. I just started TikTok, so I'm just figuring that out. But I do have a lot on my Instagram, both on my, that page.
And we do, I should say also, we have another teammate, Angela, who was unable to make it today. And I believe she's USP_, is it Angie or Angela?
Angela.
Angela, yeah.
Very good. Well, I'll end up putting all of that information in the summary of the show after Chris puts it up on the forum, so people can go in and watch. But they'll have all that information. Just send it to me, Andrea, in an email, or if it's not already in the emails that you've sent me, and then I'll just cut and paste and put it all in there, so it's for everybody who wants to look for you. They can. Is there anything else you want to leave the public with before we end the show?
Well, I wanted to mention something about the Craig Flower House during that session. While we were doing it, it was I was actually touched during that session. There was somebody pulling on my shirt in behind, and that it was almost like a child was pulling on my shirt trying to get my attention. And that happened about 2 times, and it was just very strange. We tried to figure out if it was a child or a student there, or even maybe, because as Andrea mentioned, it was there is a First Nations burial site there. It was very unusual, but it just kept tugging at my shirt, trying to get my attention. And yeah, I don't think we ever did find out who was trying to get my attention that night. So
we need to go back. We need to go back.
I was just going to say that to you and try and locate that spirit and say, I'm here again, and if you want, come and talk to me, come and tell me.
I want to hear your
that's
story.
Tugging at my heartstrings. Oh,
yeah.
I know. That's so sad when you encounter youthful spirits.
Absolutely. Jennifer, any final words?
I just want to thank you so very much for welcoming us on your show. It is really lovely to virtually meet you. And no, I'm feeling so grateful that I'm a part of this amazing team. We are women. We're very strong, and we absolutely, I totally subscribe to our ideology of not falsifying anything, presenting it as it is, and just supporting each other. I think it's so needed. When you follow us, you probably won't see drama or putting anyone down. We lift each other up. And I think we need more of that in the world.
Absolutely. Andrea, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, well, again, thank you so much for having us on. And I think for me, like, this is just such a great adventure. Like, you know, like what Jen was saying, just like us supporting each other and taking this journey together. But for the audience, I would just say, tell your story. Like, we really want everybody to know that this isn't a weird thing or things, you talk about it, because so many people have had these experiences and we're just starting to scratch the surface. So there's a lot of us out there that will support you. And if you need help, we're more than happy to help you. So
I feel like the people are more openly receptive to it now than they ever were.
Yes.
And if anything, we can thank the paranormal shows for that much. But now let's tell them what it really is, that we can go someplace and sit there for 6 hours and have nothing happen. And in the last 5 minutes, everything happens. So, that's the reality of it.
They don't go on cue. They don't respond.
And like I said, we sit there and we have these bonding moments with our teammates, hoping that something happens, and sometimes it doesn't. But at least we've had those bonding moments, right?
Exactly. I love it.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much for joining me, and wish Angela well for me. I'm sorry she couldn't be here, but I'm wishing you much success, and let's keep in touch and come back on the show again someday when you got more stuff to share with us.
That would be fabulous.
It would
Look
be.
forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Techie Chris. We couldn't do it without you. If you like listening to this week's episode and you're into all things paranormal, check out my other show, Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World podcast, out of the Paranormal UK radio network, which is available wherever you get your podcasts. And if any of you are interested in reading any of my books, you can find the links to them on my website, authoreleanorwagner.com. I write about the history of the town and location, add the paranormal story to the mix, and finish it all off with photos and evidence. Viewers, tune in on Thursday, March 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, when I'll be interviewing members from Clifton Paranormal about their many investigations and the evidence they unearthed. Stay and listen, please, as Alexander Nakarada's tune takes us out. Good night, all.
I hope you've enjoyed this little journey down my own personal nightmare alley. If you're one of those people who experiences the paranormal and has stories of your own you've been filing away over the years, I want to hear about them. And if you're a part of a paranormal investigative team, even better. I'd love to have you on my show. Got a questionable photo? Send it in. Would love to have an open discussion here amongst the professionals. Reach out to me at authoreleanorwagner@gmail.com. Enjoy our soundtrack music, Headless Horseman by Alexander Nakarada, promoted by freestockmusic.com. And remember, no ghost story is better than a real-life ghost story. Until we meet again, make sure you're creeping it real.